I was just
I was getting worried something was wrong.
no, that's just me, like anybody else, just going nuts.
How's Carrie doing, by the way?
Very good.
Excellent.
It's so funny. Our lives. I wish lives would go back to like not being like minute to minute on Zoom meetings. It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
And I hate being late for anything, so I apologize. It's just
You're all right.
trying the best. I'm trying to
I it
trying to
was
do
I
it.
was more concerned something had happened to you.
Well, that's yes, because I'm never late. I don't never like to be late for anybody.
Yep.
So how there's so many things I gotta. I see a lot of stuff that you've kind of put some emphasis on service,
Oh
and
yeah.
so I really need to catch up with you on that. I don't know if you guys are going to submit for an AWA award this year, but there's not a lot of innovation going on in service, so I'm very interested in see what's going on.
Yeah, I could promise you, Brian, that you will like this.
Well,
Uh
I've always liked what you guys are doing. And where's Christine now? I see that she moved on to some other company.
yeah, she's working for Taste Unlimited, which is my favorite sandwich shop in Virginia Beach. Um, but yeah, the change of pace was good. So she, like my wife, has been stuck at home with two kids for over a year, and trying to work in a startup world is rather hard when you're raising the kids like that,
Oh yeah.
especially with remote learning and everything. And like I mean, it's been crazy this year again. Our kids, my middle child, um, up until this month, went to school for 6 days. That started in August, just because of all the contact tracing, and then our oldest son actually tested positive for COVID, and it's like, and my wife was like, "Oh man, they're going back to school. Yes, I'm gonna have some free time." And
And they
no,
no, they're not going back to school.
no,
I, I mean, I wouldn't know what my mother like with five kids in a small house, and we had a really small house.
and there we go. So to cut you off there, oh, I didn't see your shirt earlier. Before we
Yeah,
before we fire it up, you're a tiny little
yeah, a
head on my
little
screen.
like what does that say? It's like I mean, when you're grateful, you just say Amen.
That's right.
Maybe we'll have some amens from the audience today. That would be fun. Let's see who's grateful. Who's Jim's here? Jim's here. Good afternoon, Jim.
Yeah. Well, somebody will have to say a woman. So,
That's right.
or is
Someone
that
would have
really
to
old
say that.
news
In
now?
today's world, you have to
Yes.
be inclusive.
Yes. Yes. So speaking of today's world, I should note we squeezed Brian in at the last minute, and that's part of the reason we're probably kicking off a little late, just because we're we did get him at the last minute, and Jeff's not here if you didn't notice. So
It's just the two of us.
that's right.
Just the two of us. We can make it. Okay. Well, I'm not a good singer, so
You're better than me.
Bruce Hartz, Adam, come on. We got people joining us.
Yeah, so we missed Jeff, unfortunately for us, because I'm jealous as hell of him. He got a Maker's Mark ambassadorship. And
Wow, what is that?
so another Maker's ambassador will let you in. And you get it like, he got it like 8 years ago. And they put a barrel of whiskey in your name. You get a plaque and all this stuff. And they're opening his barrel. So he's in Kentucky, um, drinking whiskey.
Wow. Wow. That is
Yes.
I've never acquired a taste for whiskey yet, but
Mm.
I have acquired a taste for premium tequila, so I've been exploring all the new tequilas out there.
Well, I'll give you a little advice on the whiskey side. So I recently got into it. Recently, like 2 years ago. So somebody gave me some Glenfiddich on my birthday, and I said, I'll give it a shot. Never really, and that's Scotch, by the way. But if you want to get a nice little start, I highly advise Monkey Shoulder. So
Okay, I'm going to write that down. Monkey shoulder.
yeah, it's super
And is there a
smooth.
certain age,
No,
like?
it's not that expensive either. I think it's
Yeah.
like it's under $40 for a bottle.
Okay.
And it's super smooth. It's nice and sweet. So for somebody who has never really done straight whiskey before, or Scotch or bourbon, that's what I usually
Okay.
advise to
Monkey
try.
shoulder. I'm going to go look for some monkeys.
Yeah, it's pretty decent. I actually had some last night. So
Well, okay.
yeah.
There we go.
All right. So last minute, Brian's here, and the reason for that is because he's announced a scholarship, and we thought it was pretty damn cool. So we
Yeah.
asked him to come on and tell us
Come
about it.
on. Yeah. So, you know, there's hundreds of stories of how people learned during COVID, but when COVID struck, we had our digital marketing strategies conference planned, and then our AAS. So in 2020, we had to go virtual, and through that experience, I learned something that there was a whole group of people who said to me, Brian, my boss doesn't allow me to go to conferences. If I did, I'd have to do it on my own dime. Others, it's just like, I can't even get a budget for books or other things. And I was like, really? Like, that's strange. You're the marketing person or the BDC manager. And so the virtual conferences allowed us to take our education to more people. We're celebrating 16 years of just doing automotive digital marketing. So I said, let's throw some money as a way of paying it forward, being grateful. So we came up with $10,000 a year, and so for $160,000, we are offering people who could use the scholarship ability to attend our conferences, to take our online classes, to get books. I've published 9 books, to participate in our online mentoring. So we're literally just saying, if you're in a situation where your dealership won't pay for those things and you want to learn, we want to help.
Especially right now, so many dealerships have frozen their budgets because of the inventory constraints. So
That's right.
here's a shot.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a funny thing because, Alex, you've been in retail, and we have so many friends that can say amen to this story. But when times are tough, it's like there's no money to send you for a conference. When times are great, we're too busy to send you to a conference. And in the middle, there's some other excuse. But when it really comes to education, unlike the medical profession or the legal profession where people have continuing education credits to maintain their licensure, I always thought it was odd. There's 18,000 dealerships. There's probably at the management level, let's just say a dozen people in sales and marketing leadership. So we're talking about, a large group of people. And then, whether it was Digital Dealer that was just here with maybe 1,000 dealership employees, or our events, I would say less than 20% ever get out to a conference. And that's where I kind of scratch my head. So maybe the scholarships will help.
Yeah, I hope so. Then also, I will give you a little shout out on your conferences. They're some of my favorite, especially because it's nice to go out and go to a luxury spot, and especially where you're going to have AAS.
That's right. So we'll be in Palm Beach next month. And listen, Vegas has its draw. There's absolutely no reason for that. I got some reports from Vegas, so congratulations to the digital dealer team. They had a great attendance, but I also heard the typical stories like, we're out till 3 o'clock, partying, and take and Vegas is perfect for that.
And it would
Now,
be disappointing if you didn't hear that.
exactly, and it was really cool what. You know, what I saw, the next generation of young leaders kind of creating a buzz at Digital Dealer, which was a lot of fun. But, at this point in my life, I don't need to be out drinking at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd rather have great food and be with people and be in a nice hotel instead of being in the mosh pit. So our events, we only hold two big ones, Napa in the spring. So we'll be in Napa back in May, and Palm Beach in November. So these two events are really educationally focused. So if a dealer sends their people there, I mean, we're in session pretty much from 8:30 to 6 every day.
Now that you're into tequila, starting to think there might be like a Catalina area trip that might need to do. So Baja Coast, California.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, it's interesting. I participate in like a tequila forum. When people go down to Mexico and pick up some of these rare gems, which are priced a lot better, but you're limited on how many bottles. I don't think I want to take a trip down to Mexico just for alcohol, but it is amazing that there's a whole, you can buy tequila for, $50 a bottle up to now $2,000 a bottle. Like, if you would have told me that when it was high school and we had nasty tequila at parties.
You mean the aristocrat?
Yeah, that people would be paying regularly now $200 and $300 a bottle for tequila. You would have laughed.
Yep. I remember when my dad got into it, and was many years ago, sipping tequila. Like, it never made sense to me. I was like, man, that goes in margaritas or shots.
Exactly.
So,
now I find myself sipping just like a fine whiskey or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. So funny you're mentioning 16 years ago. And DealerRefresh is also celebrating its 16th anniversary. So
wow.
We were founded in 2005 in April. So
yeah, same with us.
But remember, like, when we first met, we were sort of the black sheep of the industry, just because we were doing the digital thing. And I'm sure plenty of the people watching today, Rick Buffkin, I see you in there, definitely were in that group with us, where it's like, hey, you can type on a keyboard. There's a closet in the back of the dealership you can go sit in. And now, how far it's come.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And when you see the massive consolidation that's going on, and, I've had a chance to work with a couple large dealer groups, but for example, I developed VistaDash. Lithia still uses VistaDash. They're such a data-driven company. When they buy a store, they come in with, a 40-page playbook. This is our culture. This is our thinking. This is our strategy. This is how we fit in. This is how we train. Everything is data-driven. Everything is rolled up. They pick technology based on API integration and not flowery, performance claims. It's like, can you fit into our data engine, our data cloud? Yes. Okay, then let's see how those work. So yeah, and those type of conversations in buy sells never, that wasn't part of the conversation. So using data smarter, saving overhead, using distributed systems, is absolutely where we are now. When we started, we were the unicorns if you were doing digital, thinking.
That's the whole purpose for DealerRefresh. It was Jeff was so frustrated being the internet guy in a store where nobody cared and just wanted to find some other people who he could talk to.
Yeah, and I always think it's still a classic Joe Webb's video of the internet manager, and it was so true. Somebody was the token person who was going to answer these internet leads, and each week, each month, they got new responsibilities. Until literally people were just running out and breaking. They were just like, no, I can't handle it all. But it is the only sad thing is here it's 2021 and dealers are still not wanting to serve people when they come to their website in real time, and they're still so lead. Give me a lead, I'll chase them. It makes no sense in today's retail environment and the speed to market. Why? I was just visiting a deal the other day. Every call to action button, which was three, which was good. There was only three. Every one of them popped up a Fusion Zone form, which basically said, no one's here to help you right now. And I was like, okay, this is broken.
Yep. I had an epiphany earlier today. One of our salespeople was running me through something, and she was talking about the finance calculator on the dealer website. And that's something, I've thought about it just because, the finance calculator, the digital retailing tool, they're at odds with one another. They're saying different things.
Of course.
But I never really equated the finance calculator on the dealership website as the first point of frustration with the dealership. So you think about the consumer journey. They've come down, they've been to the manufacturer's website, blah, 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 and they've settled in on a vehicle of some sort. That's when they go to the dealership. Okay, now the burning question is how much is this for me?
That's right.
So the finance calculators, and this is true on autotrader.com, it's true on cars.com, all the third parties are the same. They don't provide any information. Really, you got to guess at it. You got to figure out, what is my APR? And I don't know what the hell an APR is. I'm just a dumb consumer,
Right.
But the one that she was pointing out to me, one of my employees this morning was pointing out, was that you have to bring your own price. So, it's if I'm any kind of consumer with a brain, I'm going to see this $36,000 price tag on one of your cars. I'm going to go in your website and I'm going to say, oh, I bet I can negotiate that down to 33 grand, 32 grand, something like, and that's the number I'm going to play with.
Right.
And and now I've set that in my head.
Yep.
And when you say it's not that price and that payment I made on my own, if using your tool, is different than what you're saying now. Yeah, you've hit my friction point. Now I'm pissed at you.
Well, how about this, Alex? In this world, I mean, if you're selling luxury cars or trucks, even if they put in MSRP, it's like, no, that's MSRP plus $5,000. It's like, what? So yeah, the payment calculators, I'm not even sure why they're still on a website. And let me just say, if you have an accurate retailing interface, you should get rid of that payment calculator. And I don't even know why it's still there.
It's just it's a artifact of a different time, kind of like the credit center, or I mean, you could even make an argument for specials in some ways. I'm not going to jump into service specials or anything. I think those are important, but the sales specials are also a friction point. Most of the time, it's a regurgitation of something that the tier 2 or the OEM is pushing. And you can't find the cars that match that offer or find the offer on the cars themselves. That's another friction point. So,
well, I laugh. I was on a tour this week, doing traveling, visiting dealers, which I love, and I was just going through the dealer's website. I was showing them how crazy they had two different trade tools, on their website. They added Capital One button, which is a competing number and a whole digital retailing experience. And then I just went to their new car specials page because I was trying to fix their Google My Business. I said, well, normally we use the menu link to go to your specials. Let's go there. And it just sounds like there are no specials. He's like, yeah, right now we have no specials. And I said, well,
Why is the
why
link
is that?
active?
Why, why don't you shut that menu choice off?
You know,
Like, hey, that's a good idea.
yeah, like challenge the website vendors. I mean, dealers aren't, let's face it, like we're not HTML coders. We're not website people. And a lot of dealerships also don't employ marketing people. So some of this falls on a BDC manager or a sales manager even.
Yeah.
So why can't the website providers be a little more smart and say, hey, there's no specials configured. Let's turn that link off right now. That's really damn easy to do.
Well, it
I mean, maybe it hurts SEO. I don't know. Like, do people search for specials? I don't know.
Ooh, I think so. It leads into an article that I published this week that had a tagline that digital retailing basically debunks that Google Ads is working today for the automotive industry. And, Alex, you know this, and our listeners know this, but I restated my frustration that on a dealer's website, you have the website platform provider, and then typically a different chat provider, and then typically a different digital retailing provider, and then a different trade tool provider or service scheduler, and maybe they use a program like Auto Lead Star, and every dealer for the most part is using Google Ads in some limited budget now, and normally thousands. And Google Analytics is the logbook for the dealer showroom. All Google Ads does is send traffic. So Google says send back the signals, the positive signals that you want to send back to Google Ads to say, I want more of those. And I still have not found a single dealer set up properly. What I see is software installed, but on the touch points, Alex, where a consumer can give.
By the way, I've never heard it framed that way. I like that. That's a nice translation.
Yeah, it's like Google Ads says you want more new and used car leads or shoppers. Just give me the signals that show me that they were a shopper, which is typically lead forms, digital retailing lead forms, and sales phone calls, sales chats, sales text, and then shopping signals like, working a deal and stuff. And so I still haven't walked into a dealer that has these sales signals configured properly. And everyone's pointing the finger. The chat company says, hey, I'm sending events. It's not my job to create goals. And you would think that the website provider says, hey, all this software is on the website. We should help the dealer set up goals so they can configure their advertising better. They're not saying it. The digital retailing company is like, hey, we just provide digital retailing tools. We don't do marketing. And I wrote about this, that if no one's going to take responsibility, then it's impossible for Google Ads to work effectively, because the digital retailing tools, as you know, have taken over most of the form conversions from dealer websites. So what I see is most agencies in these OEM programs, they're configuring mobile click to call and the website lead forms, just two conversion goals. That's it. And basically that is a fraction of the sales signals that are on a dealer's website today.
That is interesting, Brian.
Yeah, we just did a webinar yesterday which shared our new framework. And I wanted to share with DealerRefresh listeners, because you guys are typically more advanced than the average bear. But I will tell you two major takeaways from yesterday's webinar. And the first one was most dealers, I would say 100% of the dealers, if you ask their agencies what signals their agency is using or what goals to optimize their new and used car campaigns, it's phone calls and lead forms. Phone calls and lead forms. And it should be chat, text, and digital retailing, but I'm just saying, rarely do the agencies know how to figure that out. Okay.
Well, it should also be, I hated this when I was a dealer. I could not stand what Cobalt used to do, and they took credit for the map views just as strong an attributional
Yeah,
credit
the
as a
hours and
lead.
directions. They called it a conversion.
But you know what? I mean, I would want that as an event and something
Yeah.
to watch now.
Yeah. So what we did is we announced for the first time yesterday a new framework for Google Ads. 20 goals for sales and 20 goals for service, each set up in their own view. And each view would have a hard conversions and soft conversions, like hours and directions page. We always called it a soft conversion at our agency. But the cool thing is that yesterday's breakthrough for all the dealers that run, there were hundreds. They realized that the most common signal that their agency sends back to Google is all phone calls. Now, the phone calls are in two things: the phone number that's in the Google mobile ad. By default, Google calls that a conversion. You have to uncheck that if you don't want mobile click to call on the ad, and then the dealer's website click to call and lead forms. If you looked at what's the minimum, unfortunately, but the minimum, the two sales signals. Now, if the dealer has a larger dealership, they may be using Google Store Visits if it is a metric that is provided. Small dealers wouldn't see that, large dealers would. And here's what we found out, and it was mind blowing for most people, is that less than 15% of all Google Ads phone calls are for sales. So you can't use all phone call conversions. You're basically, and here's the amazing thing, you're basically telling Google, if you use all phone calls, to give me more service business. And you can't use store visits because 75% of all people who go on the property are for service. So sales to service is about 3-to-1. So you can't use store visits as a metric to optimize your new and used car campaigns because all you're doing is telling Google, give me more service. So the breakthrough
Well, unless that's what you're after.
yeah, well, of course, but you know who pays for Google Ads?
Yes.
Variable ops, not fixed ops. So the breakthrough yesterday is we showed how to create events for sales calls, service calls, parts calls, operator calls. So for the first time, you could create a goal for a conversion goal for a service call, a parts call, a sales call. And then we created a framework to show the common DR soft and hard events for the different providers. So now, for the first time in 21 years, because originally phone calls were not part of the Google ad structure, but I'd say in the last 15 years, we've been working with the wrong playbook, which has now answered the question, why does Google Ads traffic doesn't have intense shopper activity, even though the ads are all about new and used cars? Is because we were sending Google's bidding engine the wrong signals. So yesterday, the breakthrough is we shared how to send pure sales signals for sales campaigns, pure service signals for service campaigns. And I'm going to be teaching how to do that next month at AAAS as well.
That is very interesting. And again, kudos for the translation. That's one of the things that you do very well, Brian, better than so many, is just take something that's really difficult and translate it into something that I think any operator could appreciate and understand. So,
Yeah, because at the end of the day, right, the general managers have to feel comfortable with what they spend. And I was on the road this week. I visited management for 10 total franchise, and I told each group the same story. And every one of them said, wow, that makes so much sense. Like, why would I send all my phone calls to tell Google those are positive signals for my sales campaign? I listen to those phone calls, and there's a lot of service and parts. And of course, then the lights go on. How come? And then it goes like this, how come my website provider didn't tell me? How come my Google Ads provider didn't tell? How come my digital retail? And I'm like, stop blaming that's brain damage. Just now that you know, it's time to get your Google ad strategy. And then, of course, this same framework can use to improve Facebook, email marketing, display, OTT as well.
Well, Rick's asking, why aren't the DMS providers getting involved with GA? I'll throw that back up there.
Yeah. So, Rick, I'm not sure. Give me some context on
Oh, so
how you would see those two working together.
my guess is Rick's thinking the DMS is the accounting system. So that's the last event you definitely want to create more of.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so if there was a way to trigger something on that front, I'm assuming that's what he's saying, but maybe
Yeah.
there's a little delay. It might take him a
Yeah.
little time to
So
peck it up too.
So there are companies like Four Eyes and others, right, who use anonymous ID and use data from the DMS to tell you that an existing customer is on the site. Okay, so Rick says service visit, push a store visit into GA via the API. Oh, I see. Got it. Got it. Okay. So Rick, so let's think about this for a minute. When a phone call comes in from a website visit, there's a session ID, a Google ID, or a Facebook ID associated with the ad. Companies like Car Wars Call Review will capture that, right? Wait to how the person responds to the bridge, and then send the event. Was it service parts administration? Okay. But the key here is Google Analytics is a session based what happened on your website. So, in order for service to be connected, like somebody came from the ad and called service, we have that. But what if they scheduled the service? The problem is all of the service schedulers are iframes. So the service scheduler doesn't see the Google ID. It doesn't see the session. It's in a different window or box. And they've never taken the time to write the code to connect the outside world, the Google session, with the service scheduler, which is on another platform. If they did, Rick, then we could have ad campaigns that actually register a service appointment or even an estimated revenue, right? If they've picked the service package that had a preset cash amount. But right now, I'm not aware of any service scheduler that is smart enough to ingest the Google ID, the session ID, like the Gclid or the Facebook ID. I haven't seen anybody do that yet.
Well, here's another one from Ryan Everson. So, why doesn't Google do things similar to Facebook and basically uploading a customer list here, I'm assuming?
Well, what Facebook does is if you give them a list of customers who purchased, and that list of customers is typically their name, their email address, and phone number. I think that's all they need. And then you ingest that list into Facebook. It will tell you how many of those customers engaged with a Facebook ad. And I think that's what Ryan is talking about. I'm not sure why Google isn't doing that, but I will. And Ryan is a very smart guy. He's over 50 plus stores at Garber. But let me throw it out there that, and I'm not pointing fingers, but it's very odd to me for the last 20 years, and Google's have spoken at automotive conferences, how the conversation of using phone call conversions and store visits to optimize sales campaigns, when those two signals have very low sales, conversions in them. And it almost seems to me that they just wanted dealers to spend more money. So let's count all store visits and let's count all phone calls as if they were all for sales. But I do question the integrity of those who have known that the number of sales phone calls are very small, and the number of store visits for service dominates sales. And yet these were the metrics or the signals that we're supposed to send back to the bidding engine. It's like, it's nuts. I don't have an answer, but it is a mess.
So something, I don't know. This is a total theory. I really have no idea what's going on at Google, nor does anyone else, I'm sure.
Yeah, no one knows.
But one thing that I have seen in my career, and especially since moving over to the vendor side and working with technology, is the legacy system and how hard it is to adapt it to modern stuff. I mean, you can look at any CRM product right now that was developed in the 90s, and they're so not good for what's going on right now. There's a thread on DealerRefresh right this moment where a number of dealers are now asking Vin Solutions just add another status for the customers we're just buying their cars from, so we can track who they are and call them when we've got inventory again.
Right.
But so typically what happens is when technology is released, it is married to the code that was actually a year or two ago before it was released, because that's when they started coding it.
Yep.
And the codes evolve, the languages change. So like JavaScript is still, it's an old language now. It's still widely used, but now thoughts moving over to React and Clojure. Those are the new codes of the day. And there are not many products that are made in those code bases. And those code bases are able to handle the kind of bandwidth changes and all sorts of stuff that go on that weren't really present before. So like you wonder why it took dealer.com so long to do something responsive. They stuck to this thing called Seamless forever.
Right.
That was totally legacy software. That was, and so I can only assume that Google at its size is having some of that issue too. So that could be a reason, I should say, why. Oh yeah, Brian Tucker, Silverlight and Flash, yes.
Silverlight.
Yeah, but that could be a reason why Google isn't doing things as the same way Facebook is. Facebook's got that extra ability that Google doesn't have.
Yeah.
Just thought.
Yeah, and the truth is that automotive is a unicorn retailer compared to other retailers. I mean, if a restaurant runs a Google Ads campaign and someone calls, they're calling either to book a reservation or to order food. If someone shows up at a restaurant, they're there to pick up food or to eat food. So a store visits metric is perfect for a restaurant, and so is a phone call. But if variable ops is paying for the advertising, if the primary business stakeholder is new and used car managers, and they want to get more new and used car shoppers, they cannot use store visits or phone calls as their positive sales signal. And that's why we introduced these 20 sales signals and 20 service signals. And that will completely change the return on ad spend, the effectiveness of Google advertising, and we'll be releasing that next month to anybody who attends.
Did you see that comment from Ryan again? He said they do have it, the ability to do it. They just don't surface it, basically. And all I can think is Google used to have a saying too, don't be evil.
Yes. Well, of course they've honored that.
Yeah.
Or not. But the auto industry has so many unique things. E-commerce is so clean. My brother has a company called Medify. They're the number one air purification systems on Amazon for home, office, schools, colleges, and hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on Google Ads and hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on Facebook. Super efficient, super effective. You only go to the website, to buy a unit or buy a filter. It's not to talk to friends. It's not to see if you have parts. It's e-commerce is beautiful if you have a very clean business model. Car dealers have never had a clean clean transactional model like that.
Well, so um, I had a lot of thought on that. Like, why is automotive an albatross in the technology space? And like, when I first got to dealer.com, they were trying to break into real estate, and that was a massive failure. And just trying to go out. And when we started to build the CRM over there, it was like, yeah, we're going to make it so that it works in the industry, and it's going to combat with Salesforce and all that kind of stuff. And we had to scale that way back. But the problem was it's the definitions in automotive are very unique. So you get and I think, not getting into the technical aspects of it all, I think it really boils down to one simple thing. And I think this is something that sets us apart in so many ways. Maybe it protects us, maybe it, as an industry, maybe who knows what. But this is the one product, being a vehicle, that consumers are highly emotional about and do not make rational decisions when buying. And because of that, it's so damn unpredictable.
I would say that is a true statement.
And I would go further and say that it impacts the divide between vendors and dealers and OEMs and dealers. Just because the dealer, in order to work with these irrational customers, they too have to be emotional. Like you can't like sell something being rational to somebody who's irrational. You got to get irrational with them. You got to bring the pump, get excited.
Turn it up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, if we were rational about our car purchases, we would all be driving Hyundai Accents. So so we're all guilty here. But the OEMs and the vendors, they're on, quarterly, yearly schedules that are based on financials and logistics and all kinds of things like that. And they have to be very planned and precise and configured to hit their numbers and to be consistent. And they have to be rational. So when you try to have a rational conversation, and I think that's why the OEMs get frustrated with dealers. They communicate better with the vendors because the vendors are working that way too. And then the dealers get frustrated with both because, the dealers having to placate to, again, an irrational human.
Yeah, that's why I love this industry, because there's always a problem to solve. Really, I mean, I'm never bored. I have 16 years. I'm sure it's the same thing. Every day I get up. I love my job. There's always somebody who needs help. There's always a problem to solve. Obviously, in my role, I've taken on challenging some of the industry norms. I've decided to be a spokesman for the dealer, call out waste, call out fraud, call out just bad behavior, and then recognize good behavior. So it's been a great industry because there's so much diversity, Alex, as you mentioned, so much innovation, so many new companies coming to market. So we're never going to get bored. But I will tell you that my bat radar is tingling, and I am somewhat concerned about the OEM move to creating national sales portals for new cars. That's surely going to affect local dealer marketing. If every time a consumer wants to configure or find the price availability or customize payments for a new car, they have to go to a national site. Of course, that's General Motors, that's Stellantis, that's Hyundai right now, that's Nissan right now. So, Toyota SmartPath is different, subdomain off the dealer's website, which I think is more appropriate. But I'm very concerned from marketing companies like myself. If new car configurations and orders are done nationally, and that's going to change the entire, ecosystem of how a local dealer stays relevant.
Well, it could also fail. I mean, everyone's pointing at Tesla. It's like, okay, so Tesla's got their every car that comes out of the Tesla factory is pre-sold. Right, so they got 5 months of pre-sales. And any business is going to sit there and look at that and drool and say, "Oh my God, I wish everything I produced was already sold 5 months out." Like,
Yep.
who wouldn't want that? So the other side to that though is like, how many Tesla models are there? What's the mystique around that brand that's still sitting out there? And what kind of perceptions are more tried and true brands going to have to overcome to be able to have that kind of trust amongst the wider consumer base? I mean, Tesla hasn't, let's face it, Tesla hasn't fucked up enough yet. Let's just,
Yeah. And, here's one thing I see. I mean, my son has a Tesla. I went with him when he bought it. It was an amazing buying experience, the best I've ever had. Okay. But I think the car feels like a tin can to me. You sit in the back seat, it's not a comfortable car. When you see the EV products that are coming out in the luxury market, they're like crazy outstanding.
ooh,
So
Porsches.
yeah. My neighbor, I just helped him order the new Porsche EV. One of our dealer clients helped him get it. I mean, these cars are going to be heads and shoulder above Tesla. Now, Tesla's always going to have some, but would I buy a Tesla? Definitely not. Not because I'm anti-Tesla. I want a certain level of luxury in my car. You know what I mean, and comfort and space. The new product. So I think where Tesla was the groundbreaker. But when the manufacturers like the Wagoneer is kind of a national site, obviously the Corvette was a national site, the Bronco, right? They're pushing, and everyone can mark their calendar the day that this happens, that there's a contractable, legal sale of a vehicle, new vehicle, on a national OEM portal. Mark that day on the calendar. That's the day where things start to really change. Right now, no OEM portal does the entire e-signature contracting, F&I, and all that. But the day that happens, and it can be based on the dealer's banks and the dealer's F&I products and the dealer's markup, but the day that a transaction happens on a national site for non-Tesla, that's going to be the start of a massive change.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting. My grandfather, before he died, said that he sees the same kind of movement to Japanese cars. So, Checkered Flag, we were the first dealer groups to carry Japanese vehicles in Norfolk, Virginia, which is the largest Navy base on this planet. And back then, there was a lot of controversy with that because, World War II.
Right.
There's still a lot of military people a little upset with the way, World War II went. But he said he could see where the consumer would shift over once the electric motor has gotten to a point where it can go 500 miles. And to your point, Brian, like, if there's a contract between the manufacturer of one of these vehicles that isn't a Rivian or a Tesla, yeah, hold on.
I mean, I personally, as a marketing professional, even if it's not contractable, where we see the manufacturers mandating that new car button for payments take the person off to a national site with no visibility on what happens. That's going to change marketing forever. I mean, it's a different experience. What is the dealer's website going to end up being? A used car and service center. Okay. Well, then they lose the customer journey. They lose attribution. Right now, there's no OEM that I know of. Now, SmartPath, I got to give Toyota credit. They're installing their technology as a subdomain, and the UA, the Google Analytics for the subdomain, just like how Roadster does it, will be transparent. So if the transaction happens on SmartPath, it will be attributed to advertising. I love what Toyota's doing. The other manufacturers don't seem to care about that. and I hope that the dealer advisory boards will speak up. But this future world, just for selfish reasons, I'm just talking about my company. Will dealers spend money on new car advertising if eventually every click is being pushed off their website? I don't know. You know, it probably is a no. They'll just do something else.
Well, that's a super happy
super happy ending for marketing professionals.
So I think we need to revisit that one and unpack it a bit more. I'm a little more optimistic. I always am an optimist on the future of car dealerships, and I will still always be a fan. So again, I'd love to jump into that. Maybe that can be a future Refresh Friday.
Yeah, I would love if we could get it. I mean, Techion is powering Hyundai's national digital retailing portal. You have Sean Wolfington's company powering Nissan's national portal. Obviously, I think it's a UK company that's powering Stellantis's national portal. I'd love to see if we can get some of those people on and say, how is the dealer going to win if all that I'd love to understand how they answer, that. I know that Toyota has always listened to their dealers, and they're doing, in my mind, doing the right thing. I'd love to find out how these companies, because I don't think the OEMs will come on and talk about it. So we may have to go to the people who are developing.
I don't know that the tech companies are really there. They're just selling their product to whoever's buying it.
Interesting. Well, we'll have to figure it out. So before we close out,
you got to tell about the scholarship again.
Yeah, let's just say anyone who is a member of DealerRefresh or here's who we're saying. If you work at a franchise dealer in the United States, you're in a sales management role, or want to be in a sales management role, or you want to be in a marketing role. We have online courses for leadership. We have online courses for marketing and media. Google Analytics, Google My Business. We have our 2 conferences. If the dealer would let you go to a conference, but not buy the ticket, meaning they would pay for your airfare and hotel, or if you want to be part of our online mentoring, there's all sorts of choices. Just go to brianpasch.com and you will see the banner for the scholarship. Just fill out the application. We're going to start by getting back to all the initial applicants next week. Love to be able to invest back into everyone who's a member of this community. And
that's why Brian's here today. Go take advantage of some education.
Come on, get some money, get some education.
It's a hell of an opportunity. Thank you, Brian.
My pleasure. And thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah. And have a good time at AAAS next month.
Yes, and please don't forget to give me an update on all the good things that you're doing at your company as well.
We will do that for sure. All right. Till next week, everybody.
All right.
Hopefully
Thanks,
we'll have
everyone.
a really hungover Jeff Kirshner back.
Yeah. Come on. Barrel master.
See y'all.